The alarm bells rang through Luna Station like thunder in a metal box. Captain Lee Jun ran down the corridor, his boots hitting the floor hard with each step. He had never heard the emergency signal this loud before. Something big was happening. When he reached the command center, everyone was staring at the main screen. The image showed space near Earth, but it was not empty like usual. Thousands of dark shapes filled the view. Ships. More ships than Lee Jun had ever seen in one place. How many? He asked the officer next to him. Over 2,000, sir. Maybe more. They just appeared an hour ago. Lee Jun felt his stomach drop. 2,000 enemy ships. Earth's entire defense fleet had only 300 vessels, and most of them were small patrol boats. This was not a battle. This would be a massacre. The communication system made a noise. A deep voice began to speak. The words came through the station's speakers in perfect English, but the accent was strange. Cold. Threatening. People of Earth. I am Admiral Kekstar of the Vorthon Empire. Your planet has been chosen for inclusion in our great civilization. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. After that time, we will take your world by force. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. The voice paused. Lee Jun could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. We have conquered 47 worlds before yours. None have ever defeated us. Do not make us demonstrate why. You have 3 days, the message ended. The command center stayed quiet for a long moment. Then everyone started talking at once. Officers shouted questions. Communications specialists tried to contact Earth. Someone was crying. Lee Jun looked at the screen again. The Vorthon ships were huge. Each one was bigger than Luna Station itself. Their dark hulls seemed to eat the light from nearby stars. These were not exploration vessels or trade ships. These were weapons built for one purpose, destroying entire worlds. He activated his personal communicator. Get me Admiral Park 1 on Earth. Emergency priority. While he waited for the connection, Lee Jun thought about his family. His wife Sue lived in Seoul with their 2 children. His daughter was only 8 years old. His son was 12. What would happen to them when those ships reached Earth? Admiral Park 1's face appeared on Lee Jun's personal screen. The older man looked tired and worried. You saw the message? Park 1 asked. Yes, sir. What are our orders? Park 1 was quiet for a moment. Come to Earth immediately. Bring your fastest ship. We're calling an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. Sir, what about our defenses here? Luna Station is— Forget the station, Lee Jun. If we can't find a solution in the next 3 days, Luna Station won't matter. Nothing will matter. Lee Jun took a transport ship to Earth. During the 2-hour journey, he read everything the computer had about the Vorthon Empire. The information was not good. The Vorthons were a warrior race that had been conquering other species for over 1,000 years. They were bigger and stronger than humans. Their technology was hundreds of years ahead of Earth's. Every species that had fought them had lost. Some had surrendered quickly and been allowed to live as slaves. Others had resisted and been completely destroyed. No planet, no people, nothing left. When Lee Jun arrived at Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva, the building was full of people running around with worried faces. He had never seen so much fear in one place. Admiral Park 1 met him at the entrance. This way. The council is already meeting. They walked through several security checkpoints and took an elevator down to the underground conference room. Inside, Lee Jun saw the most important people on Earth. The president of the United Earth government sat at the head of a long table. Military leaders from every nation were there. Scientists, politicians, and intelligence officers filled the room. Gentlemen, ladies, Park 1 said as they entered. Captain Lee Jun has arrived from Luna Station. Everyone turned to look at him. Lee Jun felt uncomfortable. These people were deciding the fate of humanity, and he was just a station commander. Captain, the president said, you've seen the enemy fleet. What's your assessment? Lee Jun cleared his throat. Sir, we cannot win a direct battle. They have too many ships. Each one is more powerful than our largest vessel. If we fight them in space, they will destroy us in minutes. An army general hit the table with his fist. So we just give up? Let them make slaves of our children? I didn't say give up, sir. I said we can't win a direct battle. A woman Lee Jun didn't recognize stood up from the back of the room. She was wearing a white lab coat and carrying a thick folder. There might be another way, she said. Everyone turned to look at her. Park 1 gestured for her to come forward. This is Dr. Na Yun, Park 1 said. She heads our Experimental Technologies Division. Dr. Na Yun walked to the front of the room. She put her folder on the table and opened it. Inside were pictures and documents that Li Jun couldn't read from where he sat. 3 years ago, my team found something in Antarctica, she said. We've been studying it ever since. It's not from Earth. The room became very quiet. Even the people who had been whispering stopped talking. What kind of something? The president asked. A crashed ship. Very old. The beings who built it fought the Vorthons centuries ago. The army general laughed, but it was not a happy sound. And they lost, obviously. How does that help us? Dr. Na Yun pulled out a photograph. It showed a strange crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. They lost because they couldn't control their own technology. But we think humans might be different. Different how? Li Jun asked. Dr. Na Yun looked directly at him. The technology uses the mind to change reality. Most species go insane trying to use it. Their thoughts become too focused or too scattered. But humans, she paused, humans have something special. We can imagine impossible things and still stay practical. We can dream and think at the same time. The president leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Doctor? We build one ship using this technology. We send it against the Vorthon fleet. One ship. The general stood up. One ship against 2,000? Dr. Na Yun nodded. One ship operated by human consciousness. If we're right about how this works, one ship will be enough. Admiral Park Wan looked around the room. Every face showed the same thing, doubt mixed with desperate hope. How long would it take to build this ship? He asked. We already built it, sir. We've been testing it for 6 months. The ship is ready. We just need a crew brave enough to try something that has never been done before. The room erupted in argument. Some people said it was impossible. Others said it was their only chance. Li Jun listened to them debate the future of humanity and realized something important. They were going to try it. They had no choice. Admiral Park Wan stood up and raised his hand for silence. When the room was quiet, he spoke. Dr. Na Yun, prepare your ship. We're going to show the Vorthons what humans can do when we have no other options. Li Jun looked at the crystal in the photograph and wondered if their species was about to save itself or destroy itself trying. In 36 hours, they would find out. 3 years earlier, Dr. Na Yun had been standing in a frozen wasteland in Antarctica, staring at something that should not have existed. The ice-cutting machines had found it 200 meters below the surface, a crashed spaceship that was definitely not human. The vessel was small, about the size of a house, and made from a metal that seemed to change color depending on how you looked at it. Parts of it were clearly damaged from the crash, but other sections looked as if they had been built yesterday. How old do you think it is? Asked Dr. Ji Sun, the xenopsychologist who had been brought in to study any alien technology they might find. Na Yun checked her instruments. The ice around it formed at least 50,000 years ago. Maybe longer. This thing crashed here before human civilization even existed. They spent weeks carefully removing the ship from the ice. Every piece was catalogued and photographed. When they finally opened the main hull, they found the remains of 3 beings that looked almost human, except for their larger heads and longer fingers. But the real discovery was in what appeared to be the ship's engine room. Instead of normal machinery, they found a chamber filled with large crystals that still glowed with a soft blue light after thousands of years. What do you think they're for? Ji-sun asked, staring at the largest crystal, which was nearly 2 meters tall. Na Yun ran her scanner over it. The energy readings are incredible, but it's not nuclear or chemical. It's something else entirely. They transported the entire ship to a secret research facility in Colorado. For months, Na Yun's team studied every piece of alien technology. They learned that the beings who built it called themselves the Kethani. More importantly, they learned that the Kethani had once fought the Vorthon Empire. The ship's computer was still partially functional. With careful work, they managed to access some of its files. What they found changed everything. The Kethani had discovered that consciousness itself could be used as a tool to manipulate reality. By focusing their thoughts through special crystals, they could make their mental images become real. They could imagine a wall and create actual matter. They could think about flying and change the laws of physics around their ships. It's incredible, Ji-sun said as they read the translated files. They could literally think things into existence. But look at this, Na Yun pointed to another section of the records. They lost the war against the Vorthons. If they had this power, how did they lose? The answer was in the final log entries. The Cathani had gone insane. The power to change reality with their thoughts had been too much for their minds to handle. Some became obsessed with perfection and spent all their time trying to create perfect objects. Others became lost in fantasies and forgot about the real world entirely. Their military had collapsed not because of enemy action, but because their own soldiers could no longer tell the difference between what was real and what they had imagined into existence. Most species that discover consciousness manipulation destroy themselves within a few generations, the final log entry read. The mind is not meant to have such power over reality. We have become gods, but gods who have forgotten how to be sane. Nayun and her team studied the technology for 2 years before they dared to test it. They built small versions of the consciousness crystals and tried to use them. The first attempts were disasters. Researchers either couldn't make them work at all, or became lost in strange mental states that required medical intervention. Then Ji Soon had an idea. What if the problem isn't the technology? What if the problem is how we're thinking about it? What do you mean? Look at the Cathani records. They were a very logical, orderly species. Their society was built on rules and precision. When they got the power to change reality, they tried to make everything perfect and controlled. Nayun nodded. And it drove them crazy because reality isn't supposed to be perfect and controlled. Exactly. But humans are different. We're chaotic. We contradict ourselves all the time. We can believe in impossible things and still function in the real world. To test this theory, they brought in a group of volunteers with very different backgrounds: artists, engineers, dreamers, practical people, scientists, and poets. They taught each person how to interface with a small consciousness crystal. The results were amazing. Where the serious, logical researchers had failed, the diverse group of humans succeeded. An artist imagined a flower and created real petals. An engineer thought about a stronger material and changed the molecular structure of a piece of metal. A child imagined that gravity worked differently and actually managed to float for a few seconds. It works because we don't take ourselves too seriously, explained Bo Ran, one of the volunteer test subjects who would later become the weapons specialist on the Determination. We can imagine impossible things, but we don't get lost in them because part of us always knows they're just imagination. The key was balance. Humans could focus intently on an idea while simultaneously remaining aware that it was just an idea. They could dream with one part of their mind while the other part stayed grounded in reality. Ji Sun called it practical imagination. Humans were apparently the only known species that could be completely serious about something they knew was impossible. After 6 months of testing, Nayun proposed building a full-scale consciousness drive ship. The military was skeptical until she demonstrated what a small group of humans could do working together. 12 volunteers linked their minds through consciousness crystals arranged in a circle. Together they imagined that the metal walls of the testing chamber were transparent. The walls didn't disappear, but they became see-through like glass while remaining structurally solid. Impossible, said General Martinez, who was observing the test. That's the point, Nayun replied. Humans specialize in impossible things. Building the Determination took 8 months. The ship was designed around a central chamber containing dozens of consciousness crystals arranged in complex patterns. The crew would sit in chairs connected to the crystal network, allowing their minds to work together while remaining individual. The hard part was finding the right crew. They needed people who could imagine freely but also stay focused under pressure. People who could work as part of a group mind while keeping their own personalities. Most importantly, they needed people who could face the impossible and think, why not? Captain Kim Tae was chosen because he had spent his military career finding creative solutions to problems that had no good answers. During the selection process, he had been given an impossible scenario: defend Earth with 1 ship against 1,000 enemies. While other candidates had tried to find logical military solutions, Kim Tae had simply said, I'd make it so their weapons couldn't hurt us. Engineer Hai Mi was selected because she could design practical solutions to imaginary problems. When asked how she would build a faster-than-light engine, she had drawn plans for a device that convinced space that the ship was already at its destination. Navigator Han Jin got his position because he could find his way through places that didn't exist. In tests, he had successfully navigated through imaginary star systems that other navigators couldn't even see. Each crew member brought a different type of thinking to the group. Together, they could imagine things that none of them could conceive alone. The training took 2 years. The crew had to learn to link their minds without losing their individual thoughts. They practiced making small changes to reality, making objects lighter, changing the color of light, convincing water to flow uphill. The hardest lesson was restraint. The consciousness crystals responded to any strong thought, not just intentional ones. During early training, crew members would accidentally change things by thinking too hard about them. Mie once turned her coffee into orange juice just by wishing it tasted better. The technology is only as stable as your mind, Ji-sun explained to the crew. You have to learn to think clearly even when reality is bending around you. They also learned that working together made them stronger. When all 12 crew members focused on the same idea, they could make changes that would be impossible for one person alone. But they had to trust each other completely. If even one person doubted what they were trying to do, the whole thing would fail. It's like singing in a choir, Kim Tae had explained to his crew. Everyone has to sing their own part, but they also have to listen to everyone else. If someone sings off-key, the whole song sounds wrong. By the time the Vorthon fleet arrived at Earth, the crew of the Determination had learned to think as both individuals and as a group. They could imagine the impossible while staying grounded in reality. They could face overwhelming odds and ask, what if we just change the rules? Now, as they sat in the consciousness chamber while Vorthon weapons fire vanished around their ship, they were about to find out if 2 years of training had been enough. The universe was about to learn what humans could do when they stopped accepting that anything was truly impossible. Through the crystal network, 12 minds shared a single thought. Let's show them something they've never seen before. Reality began to bend. Admiral Kekstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the World Breaker. Through the massive viewing window, he could see his fleet spread out across space like a dark ocean of metal and weapons. 2,000 ships, each one capable of destroying cities. He had never commanded such a large force before. The humans had less than 12 hours left to surrender. Kekstar expected them to give up soon. Most species did when they saw the true size of a Vorthon war fleet. Those who didn't surrender usually tried to run away to other star systems. Only the very stupid ones actually tried to fight. Admiral, his communications officer, called out. We're receiving a transmission from the human government. Kekstar smiled. Finally, they were going to be reasonable. Put it on the main screen. Instead of a surrender message, he saw a human in a military uniform. The man looked calm, which surprised Kekstar. Most species were crying or begging by this point. Admiral Kekstar, the human said, I am Admiral Park Wan of Earth Defense Command. We have considered your offer, and, Kekstar asked, though the human couldn't hear him yet, we decline. Earth will remain free. Any attempt to attack our world will be met with appropriate force. Kekstar laughed so hard that several officers on his bridge turned to look at him. Appropriate force? These humans had barely learned to travel between planets. Their largest ships were smaller than Vorthon escort vessels. You have made a poor choice, Kekstar said into his communicator. In 12 hours we will begin the destruction of your world. You could have lived as servants. Now you will not live at all. He cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. Begin moving the fleet into attack formation. I want every ship ready to fire the moment our deadline expires. Yes, Admiral. Should we launch scouts to watch for their fleet? Kekstar nodded. Send fast ships to monitor the approaches to their planet. I want to know how many vessels they're sending to die. The Vorthon scout ships spread out across the solar system. They were small, fast vessels designed to gather information and report back. Each one carried sensors that could detect enemy ships from millions of kilometers away. For several hours, the scouts reported nothing. Space around Earth seemed empty except for a few small stations and civilian transports. Maybe the humans were planning to surrender after all. Then, with 2 hours left before the deadline, one of the scouts detected movement. Admiral, the communications officer called out. Scout 7 reports a single vessel approaching from Earth. One ship? Kekstar asked. What type? Unknown design, sir. It's approximately 200 meters long, much smaller than our destroyers. Kekstar walked to the tactical display. The screen showed his massive fleet in red and one tiny dot in blue moving toward them. The human ship looked like an insect flying toward a giant. Are there more ships behind it? No, sir. Just the one. Kekstar stared at the display. He had conquered dozens of worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. Either the humans were completely insane or this was some kind of trick. "What are its weapons readings?" he asked. The tactical officer checked his instruments. "Strange, sir. We're detecting some kind of energy field around the ship, but it doesn't match any known weapon system. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases." Kextar studied the approaching vessel. It moved in a straight line toward the center of his fleet, showing no fear and making no attempt to hide. Its hull was smooth and silver, reflecting the light of nearby stars. "Perhaps it's carrying a large bomb," suggested his first officer. "A suicide mission? At that size? It couldn't carry anything powerful enough to damage more than a few ships." Kextar shook his head. "No, this is something else. Open a communication channel to that vessel." The main screen changed to show the bridge of the human ship. Kextar saw 12 humans standing at various stations. They all looked calm and focused, as if they were simply taking a pleasant journey through space instead of flying toward certain death. The human in the captain's chair had short black hair and steady eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with no decorations or medals. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "I am Captain Kim Tae of the human starship Determination. You are in violation of human territorial space. Please withdraw your fleet immediately." Kextar's officers began laughing. The audacity of these creatures was incredible. 12 humans on one small ship, demanding that 2,000 Vorthan warships retreat. "Captain Kim Tae," Kextar said, making sure his voice carried all the authority of the Vorthan Empire. "You are either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Turn your ship around and return to your planet. You have 1 hour to evacuate as many of your people as possible before we begin orbital bombardment." "I'm afraid that's not acceptable," Kim Tae replied. He looked as relaxed as someone discussing the weather. "This is your final warning. Withdraw from human space or face the consequences." Kextar felt his anger rising. How dare this insignificant creature threaten him? Consequences? You have 1 ship? I have 2,000. What consequences could you possibly impose? Kim Tae smiled slightly. "You're about to find out." The transmission ended. Kexter stared at the empty screen for a moment, then turned to his weapons officer. "Target that ship. Destroy it immediately. Sir, it's still approaching. Range is decreasing rapidly." On the tactical display, the blue dot continued moving toward the red fleet. It showed no signs of slowing down or changing course. If anything, it seemed to be accelerating. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "I'm reading some very strange energy patterns from that vessel. The readings keep changing. It's like nothing I've ever seen." Aboard the Determination, Captain Kim Tae looked around at his crew. These 11 men and women had trained for 2 years to use technology that most people thought was impossible. They had volunteered for a mission that might save Earth or might kill them all. Engineer Hai Mi sat at the quantum drive controls. The crystalline interface glowed softly under her hands. "All systems are stable, Captain. The consciousness link is holding." Navigator Han Jin watched the Vorthan fleet grow larger on his screen. "We're entering their formation now. They have weapons locked on us." Weapons specialist Bo Ran monitored the reality manipulation systems. Unlike traditional weapons that fired bullets or energy beams, these systems could change the fundamental nature of matter and energy. "Ready for combat operations, sir." Kim Tae felt the minds of his crew through the quantum consciousness link. They were nervous but determined. Each person remained an individual, but they were also connected in a way that normal humans could never experience. "Consciousness Coordinator Mie," he said, "begin the linking process." Mie closed her eyes and placed her hands on a control panel made of the same crystal material they had found in Antarctica. Link established. All crew members connected. Reality matrix stable. Kim Tae felt something change inside his mind. Suddenly he could sense the thoughts and emotions of everyone around him. But instead of being overwhelming, it felt natural, like he had been incomplete before and was finally whole. "Captain," Han Jin reported, "the Vorthans are hailing us again. Ignore them. We said what we needed to say." On the world breaker, Admiral Kextar watched the human ship enter the heart of his formation. It flew between his massive dreadnoughts like a bird flying between mountains. "Sir, should we open fire?" the weapons officer asked. Kextar hesitated. Something about this situation felt wrong. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever done anything like this. Why would they send one ship? What were they trying to accomplish? "Admiral," the sensor operator said, his voice worried. The energy readings from that ship are increasing exponentially. Whatever they're doing, it's building up to something. Fire warning shots, Kextar ordered. Let them know we're serious. Several Vorthon ships fired their plasma cannons. Bright bolts of energy streaked toward the Determination. They should have vaporized the small vessel instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The plasma bolts simply disappeared. They didn't hit the ship and they didn't miss. They reached a point about 1 kilometer from the Determination and ceased to exist. What just happened? Kextar demanded. I don't know, sir. Our weapons fired correctly, but the energy just vanished. Kextar felt a chill run down his spine. In 800 years of life, he had never seen technology that could make energy simply disappear. All ships, he said into his communicator, concentrate fire on the human vessel. Maximum power. Thousands of weapons fired at once. The space around the Determination filled with plasma bolts, antimatter missiles, and particle beams. Enough firepower to destroy a moon converged on one small ship. None of it touched the target. The weapons fire simply stopped existing when it got close to the human vessel. It was as if the laws of physics had changed in the space around their ship. Impossible, Kextar whispered. Absolutely impossible. On the Determination, Kim Tae felt the combined will of his crew through the quantum link. Together, they had imagined that the enemy weapons could not harm them. Through the alien technology, their thoughts had become reality. Captain, Mie said, they're firing everything they have at us. I can see that. How are our systems? Perfect. The reality matrix is holding steady. Their weapons can't exist in the space we've defined around our ship. Kim Tae nodded. The first test was complete. Now it was time. Captain Kim Tae felt the minds of his crew flowing together like streams joining a river. Through the consciousness link, he could sense Hayami's careful engineering thoughts, Han Jin's spatial awareness, and Bo Ran's focused determination. All 12 crew members remained themselves, but they also became something more. Admiral Kextar, Kim Tae said calmly into the communication system. I'm going to give you one final chance to withdraw your fleet. Leave human space now, and no harm will come to your ships or crew. On the main screen, the Vorthon Admiral's face showed anger and confusion. Behind him, officers were running around their bridge shouting reports about weapons that wouldn't work, and sensor readings that made no sense. You destroyed 3 of my ships, Kextar snarled. How? What weapon are you using? Kim Tae smiled slightly. We're not using a weapon, Admiral. We're using something far more powerful. We're using human imagination. Impossible. No species can manipulate matter with thought alone. Most species can't, Kim Tae agreed. But then most species aren't human. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal. Kextar's face turned dark with rage. I have 2,000 ships. You have 1. I don't care what tricks you're using. All ships target that vessel. Fire everything. The communication ended. Kim Tae turned to his crew. Through the consciousness link, he felt their readiness. They had trained for this moment for 2 years. Mie, link us at full strength. Everyone else, you know what to do. Mie placed both hands on the central consciousness crystal. The soft blue glow became brighter, filling the chamber with light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Full link established. Reality matrix at maximum stability. Through the link, Kim Tae felt his crew's thoughts blend with his own. But instead of losing himself in the group mind, he felt more like himself than ever before. This was what humans could do that other species couldn't. Be part of something bigger while remaining individuals. On the tactical display, thousands of weapon signatures appeared as the entire Vorthon fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts, antimatter missiles, particle beams, and gravity weapons all converged on the Determination. Enough firepower to destroy a planet focused on one small ship. Engineer Hai Mi imagined that energy couldn't exist in the space around their ship. Navigator Han Jin thought about the area around them being separate from normal space. Weapons specialist Bo Ran visualized a zone where the laws of physics worked differently. Together, their combined imagination became reality. The massive barrage of weapons fire simply ceased to exist when it reached a point 1 kilometer from the Determination. Not destroyed, not deflected, it just stopped being real. Phase 1 complete, Mie reported. Their weapons cannot affect us. Kim Tae nodded. Begin Phase 2. Through the consciousness link, the crew focused on a new shared vision. They imagined that 3 more Vorthon dreadnoughts had never been built. Not destroyed in battle, but simply never created in the first place. On the tactical display, 3 red dots vanished. In space, 3 massive warships that had existed moments before were simply gone. The crews weren't killed. They had never existed either, because the ships had never been built. Admiral Kextar stared at his sensors in horror. How are they doing this? It's not possible. His science officer, a thin Vorthan named Vexkar, was frantically checking his instruments. Sir, according to our sensors, those ships never existed. But I have records of them. I remember them. They were there. Then where are they now? I don't know, sir. It's as if reality has been edited. Kextar felt something he had never experienced in 800 years of military service. Fear. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of something that operated beyond his understanding of how the universe worked. On the Determination, Kim Tae opened the communication channel again. Admiral, you've now lost 6 ships. I can make the rest disappear just as easily. Withdraw your fleet and this ends now. What are you? Kextar asked, his voice quieter than before. We're human, Kim Tae replied simply, and humans don't accept that anything is impossible. Kextar cut the transmission and turned to his officers. All ships retreat to long range. Keep firing, but stay back. The Vorthan fleet began to pull away from the Determination, but they continued to shoot. Kim Tae sighed. These beings were too proud to learn from demonstration alone. Phase 3, he said to his crew. Let's show them something they'll remember. The consciousness link deepened. All 12 minds focused on a single complex idea. Instead of destroying the Vorthan ships, they decided to change them. Bo-Ran imagined that weapons could be transformed into something else. He-Mi thought about metal becoming organic matter. Han-Jin visualized space filling with growing plants. A squadron of Vorthan cruisers found their weapon systems turning into flowering trees. Gun barrels became branches, ammunition storage became root systems, and targeting computers became fields of grass. The ships themselves were unharmed, but they could no longer fight. The crews were uninjured but confused. They sat on their bridges, surrounded by meadows and gardens where their weapons had been moments before. This is impossible, one Vorthan captain reported to Admiral Kextar. Our plasma cannons have become apple trees. Our missile bays are full of roses. Another ship reported that their entire weapons deck had turned into a peaceful lake, complete with fish swimming in crystal clear water. The crew could only watch through the transparent walls that had once been armor plating. Kextar realized that he was not fighting an enemy in any traditional sense. These humans were rewriting the fundamental nature of reality itself. Sir, Vexkar said quietly, I've been analyzing the energy patterns from their ship. What they're doing. It's not science as we understand it. They're using consciousness to manipulate matter at the quantum level. That's impossible. No biological mind has that kind of power. Human minds apparently do, sir. Look at the readings. Kextar looked at the sensor data. The energy coming from the human ship wasn't generated by any engine or weapon. It was coming from the crew's minds themselves, amplified and focused by some kind of crystalline technology. They're thinking our ship's out of existence, he whispered. On the Determination, Mi-I monitored the consciousness link. Captain, the Matrix is holding steady. We can maintain this level of reality manipulation indefinitely. Kim Tae felt the confidence of his crew through the link. They were no longer afraid or uncertain. This was what they had trained for. The moment when human imagination became more powerful than alien technology, open. A channel to their entire fleet, he said. Every Vorthan ship received the transmission simultaneously. Kim Tae's calm face appeared on their screens. Vorthan fleet, you have seen what we can do. We can make your ships disappear. We can change your weapons into gardens. We can rewrite reality itself. But we don't want to hurt you. We want you to leave. Admiral Kextar appeared on the screen from his flagship. What do you want from us? Nothing, Kim Tae replied. We just want you to go home and never come back. Tell the rest of your empire that Earth is protected by something they don't understand and can't fight. And if we refuse? Kim Tae's expression didn't change, but through the consciousness link, his crew focused on a new shared thought. They imagined that the entire Vorthan fleet was surrounded by beautiful, harmless butterflies. Suddenly, millions of colorful butterflies appeared around every Vorthan ship. They didn't interfere with operations or harm anyone, but they were clearly real. Sensors confirmed their existence. They had mass, they consumed oxygen, they were alive. but they had been created from nothing by human thought alone. We could have made them poisonous, Kim Tae said calmly. We could have made them explosive. We could have made your ships turn into butterflies. Instead, we made something beautiful to show you that we don't want to fight. We just want you to leave. Kextar stared at the butterflies floating past his view screen. In 800 years of life conquering dozens of worlds, he had never seen anything like this. These humans hadn't just defeated his fleet. They had made him question everything he thought he knew about reality itself. You could destroy us all right now, he said. Yes, Kim Tae agreed, but we won't. Humans only fight when we have to. You can leave peacefully, or you can stay and see what else we can imagine. But I promise you, Admiral, our imagination is much bigger than your fleet. Through the consciousness link, Kim Tae felt his crew's thoughts. They could imagine the Vorthon ships turning into soap bubbles. They could make the entire fleet believe they were back on their home planet. They could convince reality that the Vorthon Empire had never existed at all, but they didn't want to. Humans might have godlike power now, but they were still human. They still believed that life was precious, even alien life. Choose wisely, Admiral, Kim Tae said. This is your last chance to leave with your honor intact. The communication ended. In the consciousness chamber of the determination, 12 humans waited to see what the Vorthons would decide. Around the alien fleet, millions of butterflies continued to dance through space, beautiful and impossible, created by human imagination and made real by human will. Admiral Kextar looked at the butterflies, then at his tactical display showing ships with gardens instead of weapons, then at the empty spaces where 6 dreadnoughts had simply stopped existing. Admiral Kextar stood alone on his bridge, watching the butterflies float past his view screen. His officers waited in silence, knowing that whatever decision he made next would echo through the galaxy for centuries. In 800 years of military service, he had never retreated from a battle. The Vorthon Empire had built its reputation on the idea that they never backed down, never showed weakness, never admitted defeat. But this wasn't really a battle. This was something else entirely. Communications, he said quietly. Send a message to all ships in the fleet. Yes, Admiral. Kextar took a deep breath. All vessels, this is Admiral Kextar. We are withdrawing from human space immediately. Set course for the outer system. Do not engage the human vessel under any circumstances. His first officer stepped forward. Sir, the Empire will not understand. They will say we ran from a single ship. Then we'll tell them the truth, Kextar replied. We didn't run from a ship. We ran from beings who can rewrite reality with their thoughts. He opened a channel to the determination. Captain Kim Tae's calm face appeared on the screen. Captain, we are withdrawing, but I need to know, will you pursue us? Will you use your abilities to hurt my crews? Kim Tae shook his head. As soon as you leave our solar system, we'll return to Earth. We don't want to conquer anyone, Admiral. We just want to be left alone. And the butterflies. Kim Tae smiled slightly. They'll fade away in a few hours. Think of them as a farewell gift. The massive Vorthon fleet began to move away from Earth. 2,000 ships that had arrived expecting an easy conquest now fled from 12 humans in a single vessel. But Kextar wasn't finished. As his fleet reached the edge of the solar system, he opened a communication channel that would broadcast across the entire galaxy. This is Admiral Kextar of the Vorthon Empire. I am sending this message to all civilizations. The species known as humans have developed abilities beyond our understanding. They can manipulate reality itself through focused thought. Any attempt to attack their world will result in consequences that I cannot adequately describe. He paused, looking back toward the small blue planet that had just changed everything. I advise all peoples to approach humanity with respect and caution. They have power that makes our weapons meaningless, but they chose mercy over destruction. This suggests wisdom as well as strength. The galaxy has changed today. Act accordingly. The transmission ended. Within hours, the message would reach every star system, every space station, every inhabited world. The Vorthon Empire's reputation for invincibility was over, but something new was beginning. On Earth, the determination landed at a secret facility in Nevada. The crew was exhausted from maintaining the consciousness link for several hours, but they were alive and victorious. Captain Kim Tae stepped out of his ship and found Admiral Park 1 waiting for him. Is it over? Park 1 asked. For now, Kim Tae replied. But this is just the beginning. Word will spread. Other species will want to test us or trade with us or learn from us. Earth isn't hidden anymore. Dr. Na Yun approached with a team of medical specialists. How do you feel? Any after effects from the consciousness link? Kim Tae thought about it. Through the quantum connection, he had experienced the thoughts and emotions of 11 other people while remaining himself. It had been the most intense experience of his life. Different, he said finally. We're all connected now, even when we're not linked through the crystals. I can sense my crew members even from here. Dr. Na Yun nodded. We expected that. The consciousness technology leaves permanent changes in human brain patterns. You'll always be more aware of other people's thoughts and emotions. Is that dangerous? We don't think so. If anything, it seems to make people more empathetic, more understanding. Over the following weeks, the crew of the Determination underwent extensive testing and debriefing. The quantum consciousness drive had worked perfectly, but using it had changed them in subtle ways. Engineer Jaime found that she could visualize complex mechanical systems in perfect detail just by thinking about them. Navigator Han Jin could sense the location of objects even when he couldn't see them. Each crew member had gained enhanced abilities related to their role on the ship. More importantly, they remained connected to each other. They could sense each other's emotions across great distances. When one of them was happy, the others felt an echo of that joy. When someone was worried, the group shared the concern. It's like having an extended family in your head, explained Mie during one of her interviews, but not in an invasive way. It's comforting. Meanwhile, Dr. Na Yun began the process of building more consciousness-drive ships. But finding suitable crews was difficult. The quantum technology required people with very specific mental qualities. Imagination balanced with practicality, creativity combined with discipline, and the ability to work as part of a group mind while maintaining individual identity. 6 months later, a second ship was completed. The HSV Imagination was slightly larger than the Determination and designed for exploration rather than defense. Captain Lee Jun, who had been at Luna Station when the Vorthons arrived, was chosen to command it. His crew included Wan Su, a former artist who had become fascinated with engineering after learning about the consciousness drive. The ship's navigator was Ran Hai, a philosopher who saw mathematics as a form of poetry. The universe is much stranger than we thought, Ran Hai said during her first interview. If human consciousness can change reality, then consciousness might be the most fundamental force in existence. The Imagination's first mission was to visit the nearest star system and establish peaceful contact with any civilizations they might find. Unlike traditional exploration, they weren't looking for resources or territory. They were looking for friends. News of humanity's defeat of the Vorthon Empire spread throughout the galaxy. Some species were afraid and avoided human space entirely. Others were curious and sent diplomatic missions to Earth. The first alien visitors were the Zalani, a peaceful species of traders who had been oppressed by the Vorthons for centuries. When they learned that humans had defeated the Empire without killing anyone, they were amazed. You could have destroyed them, said Ambassador Thalara during the first diplomatic meeting. Why didn't you? Because destruction is easy, replied Earth's new Secretary of Interstellar Relations, Dr. Ji Sun. Creation is hard. We prefer to build things rather than tear them down. Not all aliens were friendly. A species called the Mordak sent warships to test human defenses. They arrived expecting to fight against traditional weapons and were confused when their fleet was surrounded by harmless soap bubbles that made them smell like flowers. The Mordak ships fled after their weapons were transformed into musical instruments that played lullabies. Whenever someone tried to fire them, humans are either the most peaceful species in the galaxy or the most terrifying, one Mordak captain reported to his government. I'm not sure which is worse. As Earth's reputation spread, more alien species began to visit. Some came seeking trade agreements. Others wanted to learn about consciousness technology. A few came hoping to form alliances against common enemies, but humans were careful about sharing their abilities. The consciousness drive technology was too dangerous to give to species that might use it unwisely. Only a few trusted alien scientists were allowed to study the basic principles, and only under strict supervision. Power like this could destroy civilizations, Dr. Na Yun explained during a galactic science conference. We learned that from the Cathani records. We'll share our knowledge, but slowly and carefully. 2 years after the Vorthan encounter, Captain Kim Tae stood on Luna Station's observation deck, looking down at Earth. The planet looked the same as always, but everything had changed. Humans were no longer alone in the universe. They were part of a galactic community now, though their role in that community was unique. Other species had advanced technology, vast fleets, and ancient civilizations. Humans had something else, the ability to imagine the impossible and make it real. "How does it feel to be famous?" asked a reporter who had come to interview him. Kim Tae thought about the question. Through the consciousness link that still connected him to his crew, he could sense Hayami working on new ship designs, Han Jin exploring distant star systems, and Bo Ran training new weapons specialists. "We're not famous for being warriors," he said finally. "We're famous for being human, for refusing to accept that anything is truly impossible." The reporter looked confused. "What do you mean?" Kim Tae smiled and pointed toward the stars. "Other species see the universe as it is and try to find their place in it. Humans see the universe as it could be and try to make it better." That evening, Kim Tae received a message from his old crew. The Determination was being prepared for another mission, this time to help a species whose planet was dying from environmental collapse. Instead of offering traditional aid, the humans planned to use consciousness technology to heal the damaged ecosystem. "It's impossible," the aliens had said when humans offered to help. "Our world is too far gone to save." "Impossible is our specialty," Kim Tae had replied. As he prepared to rejoin his ship, Kim Tae thought about the future. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage not as conquerors or merchants, but as dreamers who could make their dreams real. The galaxy was full of